Your house is probably your largest expense disguised as your greatest investment. While you're paying property taxes, maintenance, and insurance on an appreciating asset, wealthy people are collecting rent from multiple properties that other people maintain and improve for them. This isn't about being negative toward homeownership. It's about understanding the mathematical reality of how primary residences function versus how investment properties function. They're the same physical asset class, but they operate as completely different financial instruments depending on who lives in them. Most people believe their house is their biggest investment, but an investment, by definition, puts money in your pocket. Your primary residence takes money out of your pocket every single month. It doesn't matter how much it appreciates in value if you can't access that appreciation without selling the place where you live. Let me walk you through the real numbers. Say you buy a $400,000 house with a $320,000 mortgage at 6% interest. Your monthly payment is about $1,900. Add up property taxes at $400 per month, homeowners insurance at $150 per month, and average maintenance at $300 per month. You're paying $2,650 monthly for the privilege of living in an asset you technically own, but can't liquidate without becoming homeless. Over 30 years, you'll pay roughly $1 million total for that $400,000 house. About $360,000 goes to interest, $150,000 to taxes, $55,000 to insurance, and $110,000 to maintenance. You pay $1 million to own something worth $400,000 today, hoping it appreciates faster than your total cost of ownership. Now let's look at how an investor approaches that same $400,000 house. They put down $80,000, get the same $320,000 mortgage, but they rent it out for $3,200 per month. After the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and setting aside money for maintenance and vacancy, they might clear $200 per month in cash flow. That doesn't sound like much, but here's what's actually happening. The tenant is paying down the investor's mortgage principal every month. The property is appreciating in the investor's name. The investor gets tax deductions for depreciation, interest, and expenses. And the investor is building equity in an asset they can refinance or sell without affecting where they live. After 10 years, the investor has collected $24,000 in cash flow, built roughly $60,000 in equity from principal paydown, and captured whatever appreciation occurred. Plus, they got tax benefits worth thousands per year. If they bought 5 similar properties, they're building wealth on 5 fronts simultaneously while their tenants pay the mortgages. The homeowner, after 10 years, has built equity from principal paydown and appreciation, but they've also spent 10 years of maintenance, taxes, and opportunity cost. To access their equity, they have to sell and move or take out a loan against their home. This creates a psychological trap. The homeowner sees their house appreciating from $400,000 to $600,000 over 10 years and feels wealthy, but they can't spend that $200,000 without selling their shelter. It's phantom wealth until they either move to a cheaper area or downsize significantly. The investor, meanwhile, can access their equity through refinancing without selling. They can pull cash out of property A to buy property B while keeping both properties. Their equity becomes working capital for more investments rather than trapped wealth they can't touch. The tax treatment amplifies this difference. When you live in your house, you get very limited tax benefits, a modest mortgage interest deduction maybe, if you itemize deductions. When you own rental property, almost everything becomes tax deductible. Repairs, improvements, depreciation, management costs, travel to check on the property, even a portion of your home office if you manage the rentals yourself. The wealthy understand this distinction perfectly. They often live in modest homes relative to their income, but own multiple investment properties. Their primary residence is chosen for lifestyle and convenience, not as a wealth-building strategy. Their actual wealth building happens through assets that generate income rather than consume it. There's also the diversification problem. When your house represents 60-80% of your net worth, you're making a massive concentrated bet on one property in one neighborhood in one city. If that area experiences economic decline, natural disasters, or changing demographics, your entire financial future is at risk. Real estate investors spread their risk across multiple properties, sometimes in different cities or states. If one property has problems, the others continue generating income. If one market struggles, they have exposure to other markets. The homeowner has all their eggs in one very expensive basket. The maintenance psychology is completely different too. When something breaks in your house, you fix it because you have to live there. You're motivated to maintain and improve the property, which benefits you, eventually, maybe, if you sell. When something breaks in a rental property, you fix it because it affects your income stream immediately. But you're maintaining an asset that pays you money rather than costs you money. This is why landlords often seem to profit effortlessly while homeowners struggle with housing costs. The landlord has systematically designed their real estate portfolio to generate cash flow and build equity. The homeowner has accidentally created a beautiful liability that consumes cash flow while building equity they can't access. The opportunity cost compounds over decades. While you're putting $80,000 down on a house plus thousands per month in total ownership costs, an investor is using that same capital to acquire multiple cash flowing properties. Your money is working to provide you shelter. Their money is working to generate more money. Banks understand this dynamic perfectly. They're happy to lend you money to buy a house you'll live in because they know you'll prioritize that mortgage payment above almost anything else. You need shelter, so you'll make sacrifices in other areas to keep your housing. You've given them a psychological advantage in the lending relationship. But banks are more cautious about investor loans because investors can walk away from properties that don't make financial sense. Investors make decisions based on numbers, not emotions. If the investment stops working, they'll sell or foreclose and move on to better opportunities. The American dream mythology around homeownership serves this system perfectly. People are encouraged to buy the biggest house they can afford with the smallest down payment possible, maximizing their debt load and minimizing their liquidity. This creates reliable mortgage customers who will pay interest for decades. Meanwhile, the people who understand how real estate actually builds wealth are accumulating rental properties with tenants who pay mortgages on multiple properties simultaneously. One strategy creates mortgage prisoners, the other creates real estate moguls. The appreciation argument is particularly misleading. Yes, houses appreciate over time, but so do stocks, and stocks don't require property taxes, insurance, maintenance, or the inability to access your equity without selling. A diversified stock portfolio appreciates without demanding monthly payments from you. When people say real estate is the best investment, they're usually comparing primary residence ownership to doing nothing with money. But that's not the real comparison. The real comparison is between different ways of deploying capital to build wealth. The wealthy often rent their primary residences, especially in expensive cities, and use their capital to buy income-producing assets instead. They're not throwing money away on rent. They're buying flexibility and deploying their capital more efficiently than tying it up in an expensive liability. This doesn't mean homeownership is always wrong. If you can buy a house that costs less than rent for equivalent housing, if you plan to stay in an area for many years, if you have sufficient capital left over for other investments, homeownership can make sense. But it's not automatically a wealth-building strategy just because house prices generally rise over time. The key insight is understanding the difference between assets and liabilities. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. Your primary residence, regardless of its appreciation potential, operates as a liability in your cash flow until the day you sell it. Real wealth builders focus on acquiring assets first and upgrading their lifestyle second. They might live in modest housing for years while building a portfolio of income-generating properties, then upgrade their personal residence once their investments generate enough passive income to support higher lifestyle costs. This is why many wealthy people's homes seem modest compared to their actual wealth. The house is not where they store their wealth, it's just where they live. Their wealth is stored in assets that generate income, appreciate in value, and can be leveraged for additional investments without affecting their housing situation. Understanding this distinction changes how you think about every housing decision. Instead of asking, how much house can I afford? You ask, what's the minimum housing that meets my needs so I can deploy capital toward income-producing assets? Instead of rushing to pay off your mortgage, you ask, how can I use my equity to acquire assets that generate cash flow? The mathematics are clear. Using real estate as shelter is expensive. Using real estate as investment is profitable. Most people accidentally choose the expensive option while believing they're making the profitable choice. This simple misunderstanding keeps millions of people house rich and cash poor, while others build generational wealth through the same asset class used completely differently.